You're listening to The Paul Higgins Show, where ambitious tech consultants come to unlock their potential. After 18 years as a global leader, I launched several businesses, culminating in a successful exit. I'm sharing what I learned, plus what's working now from mentoring tech consultants. You will hear leaders within our industry to help you build a business you love that allows you to do what you want. If you are looking for immediate cash flow wins to fuel your growth, go to our free ebook at paulhigginsmentoring.com/roadmap. Imagine you're a Salesforce partner and you know that your consulting is okay, but a client mentions someone else and that someone else got the work because they had a better methodology and a way of doing it. Hi, I'm Paul Higgins and welcome to the Paul Higgins Podcast, episode 540. And today we've got the pleasure of having Heather Black on from Supermums, and she's going to help you improve those Salesforce consulting skills so that you win more work. Heather is an award-winning advocate for women and an international best-selling author, a speaker, a trainer who inspires women to achieve their potential in technology. In 2010, she became an accidental Salesforce admin for profit, and she loved it so much she decided to upskill her Salesforce skills and became a consultant in 2012 and helped implement the Salesforce platform across nonprofits. She realized her career path could work for other mums just like her. So she launched Supermums in 2016 to bring women into the sector. Supermums is now a global social enterprise that trains and places experienced and emerging tech talent into employers who champion diversity and inclusiveness. As a consultant, she has overseen over 700 Salesforce projects and built her business up to a 20-person team, and now enjoys upskilling talent in Salesforce consultancy and coaching skills. Over to Heather Black from supermums.org. Great to have you here, Heather.
Oh, thank you for having me, Paul. Very exciting.
Yeah, well, I've heard so much about you, and I've got to say, you've got one of the best about videos that I've seen from anyone. It's a fantastic video. So we'll have the link in the show notes. Please go and check that out. But why don't we kick off with who your ideal client is and what problems you love to solve for them?
Oh, thank you, Paul. Well, I love to help people launch and accelerate their career within the Salesforce ecosystem. So at Supermums, which I launched 7 years ago, we help people launch their career through an admin course. And also we have an additional course, our consultancy skills course, that supports people to develop those much needed consultancy skills to lead Salesforce projects.
Fantastic. And I know that in the background, I sort of spoke a little bit about the driver, but what was the change between, doing the admin into then the consultancy course? Was it a natural progression, or was there a particular turning point that you thought I actually need to have both?
I think the admin course sets you up for really understanding the basics and the foundations of Salesforce. But if you're going then into a role where you're the solo Salesforce administrator, or you have the ambitions to be the business analyst or consultant, and you're finding yourself in a position where you're leading a project and taking people through that design, build, rollout stage, you need the consultancy skills. And I felt that we were leaving little, like I see our Supermums as trainees, you're sort of sending them out of the nest to fly. Yes. And we were like, we need to provide additional support and additional training in these, further skills. And it's an area that I'm particularly passionate in, having grown an SI myself and grown a team of consultants. I developed a lot of tools and templates and methodologies about how to lead a project from A to Z. I had all of the suite of knowledge and the training, and I've done a lot of professional training in that area. So that's why I designed the course, because we didn't want them to fly the nest without having all the adequate skills. So we launched the additional course, and it not only serves alumni that have gone through the admin course, but we also attract Salesforce professionals from all over the world with years of experience that still do our course and find it of immense value.
Fantastic. So you can either be someone that is just starting your career within Salesforce, or you can be someone that's been in the ecosystem for a while but need to hone those consultancy skills. And I think, there is a big difference I see. And people, if you're a regular listener, you'll know that I say, you're not a Salesforce partner, right? You're a consultant that's solving a particular problem right, for the client has to get a result, and you happen to use Salesforce. And I think there's a sort of big distinction there. And I think a lot of us get lost in the technology versus the consultancy side, which is, getting a result. So what's when, people go through the consultancy course, tell me how you sort of differentiate between the business problem and the technology solution.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the consultancy skills is very much focused on the leadership process, really, of bringing people on a journey of change and how to enthuse, engage, and empower them on that journey. Because actually, most technology projects will go wrong, not necessarily because of the technology, but because of the people involved. And so it's being very mindful about how do you bring people on a journey. And I think the big reflection is that as Salesforce consultants, we go into a company to help implement a process for them. Equally, as Salesforce consultants, we need a process for implementing Salesforce for a client. Yes. And when I was running Salesforce projects, I ended up having a checklist. I'm a big fan of checklists, of like 70 things that needed to be done on a project from start to finish. And typically, if something wasn't done in that checklist, that's where a problem would happen. So, yes. You kind of are having overseen 700 projects, you could see where the problems would fall. And it's quite often if something was missed in that checklist or not delivered, and let's say not delivered in the way that you had expected. Having a checklist of all the things we need to think about when we are delivering a project is what people have really valued from the content I put together. I've got the course that I run, but I also created a best-selling book called Become a Super Salesforce Consultant that talks through this A to Z of leading a project, which has given people that checklist. And I say that seasoned professionals who have heard me speak and taken the book have gone, oh, this is a really good checklist to go back to and just make sure I'm ticking everything off. Because having experienced it myself, I guarantee if something is missing on that checklist, there will be something that goes wrong in that project. And we don't maximize user adoption. We don't maximize the end result. It's everything that I've learned and I've seen. I think it's really useful to have those checklists and balances. But the key disciplines, I think the key 3 skills that I teach as part of this is business analysis, agile project management using the DSDM methodology, and change management. And understanding those 3 disciplines and how they depend on each other and interrelate is incredibly important. And I think it's actually impossible to deliver a Salesforce project really well without having training in all those 3 areas and to use them and apply them on a daily basis.
Great. And can you just repeat those 3 areas again? Because I know you went through them pretty quickly, but what are those 3 areas?
The 3 skills that I recommend as the key hat trick skills are business analysis, change management, and agile project management using the DSDM methodology. The DSDM methodology is one of the agile project management methodologies. There are a suite of them, but I think what is incredibly important about this methodology, which is internationally recognized, is that it puts the business priorities at the forefront of decision making. So you understand the business, what its key priorities are, what its key pain points are. You prioritize everything using Moscow rules prioritization. Moscow rules stands for M is a must-have priority, and that this organizational project will falter if we don't do it. Yes. Should have is that it's a priority, but there's a workaround. Could have is that we could have it on the list, and obviously, there's always a wish list. And then won't have is that we won't have it this time. And what you end up doing is cascading that prioritization. So if you were talking about the business priorities, your first decision would be, well, out of sales, marketing, support desk, for example, which of these is the must-have? Okay, sales is the must-have. If we look at sales and then we look at high-level project requirements within that, you might have an e-signature requirement, a payment integration, a financial book accounting integration. Okay, which of these is must, should, could? Then when you go, okay, well, the online payment integration is the must-have, you then have a detailed set of requirements underneath that. And then of those functional requirements and non-functional requirements, you then prioritize those by must-have, should have. And with this, you are prioritizing everything to fit it within time and budget. You agree a budget with the client, you prioritize everything using Moscow rules, you then complete and use your time effectively to the point that they've used all their budget. But they always own, you always say to the client every week, So it's an iterative process. What do you want me to focus on this week? Which of these requirements is your must-have right now? What are we focusing on? So they have complete control over their budget, where their time goes, what they focus it on. When that budget runs out, the inclination is that you've completed all of the must-haves at least,
Yes.
and hopefully 30 to 40% of the should-haves.
Brilliant. And once again, we'll have a summary of that in the show notes. If you're driving, etc., and you wanted to write that down, we will have it. And also, remember, you can watch Heather also on YouTube as well at Paul Higgins Mentoring. So you talked about the business analysis part. What are some of the key components of the business analysis part that a lot of Salesforce consultants miss?
So with business analysis, there's some key pillars to it as well. So the first is having a really good business case. I went to pick up a red account that Salesforce had in my consulting days, and they'd spent £2 million on this system, and they had no understanding of the value of the system and what it provided to the teams, and they were just going to cut it. And so what was clear when we went in there is that they had no clear business case or KPIs to measure the value of at the outset, but all this money had been spent and none of that value had been measured or attained. If any money is going to be invested in Salesforce on product or resource, it's really important to know, well, what is this contributing towards? What is the trailblazer story that we're creating here? What value is it going to give the organization, the teams and departments? So there needs to be a really clear business case for any work, at the outset and ongoing, so business can see the value that's been added. So they will continue to add budget and continue to give you a job and a promotion and everything else. So you need to show your value as a consultant to that organization, because the more value you can add, the more they're going to love you, the more that you can create for them, the more they appreciate the work. So the business case is the first thing. And in my book, and what I teach is I would always go in with 15 example indicators around 5 core areas. So there's 3 indicators around 5 core areas about how you can really get a value. And as a Salesforce consultant, we should be going in and explaining to them the value they can get with these example indicators to say, well, look, here are some example indicators. Which ones would apply to your organization and how it add value? Is there anything else we'd then add? And then obviously give them some to work with, because they might not appreciate all the opportunities that can be gained from Salesforce. So it really opens their eyes, and then you can expand on that. So the business case, the KPIs, educate them on that. The second is then eliciting the requirements. And when we dovetail change management into business analysis, as I say, the two I don't think can be really seen separately.
Yes.
Is depending on the culture of the organization, because there's 4 different culture types typically. And depending on the stakeholders, you will adopt a different business analysis style. And you elicit requirements in different ways, as I say, depending on the culture and the approach. And so you want to gather requirements that is a way that's appropriate to the organization. You then want to document it. And I talk about 10 different types of documentation that you need to produce off the back of a project. I've seen over and over again the challenges of projects where there's no documentation, both for a consultant and the client, if nothing is documented properly. So it's so incredibly important that there's all that suite of documentation that's produced, that's signed off, that's agreed, and everybody has that audit trail and that history. And when I say documents, I'm not necessarily referring to like a Word document. You can document things within systems and tools. And I talk about 5 different tools that you might need on a project. Tools might be process modeling tool, a document file sharing tool, a project management tool, requirements log case management tool, a communication tool. And ideally they'd all integrate, but that's not always the case. But you need these tools to manage and facilitate a project. All these things are incredibly important throughout this process. And again, that then overlaps with project management, because with business analysis, you're always going to come out with a wish list that is longer than the budget available, which is why you need the agile project management and the DSGM methodology to then help the client focus in on, well, of these requirements, which ones are we going to do first? And you prioritize throughout the business analysis process. They're the key things that I talk about is, the business case, solicitation, documentation, prioritization, and how you'd flavor that based on the change management approach as well.
And the change management, I know that sometimes someone brings in an external resource for the change management and they partner up, and then sometimes it's the SI or the Salesforce practice that's doing it. Do you see a particular size of business where that matters, whether you do it in-house or whether you bring in a third party?
The change management principles, I have a 4-step process. And again, there's 8 pillars to change management and how I apply it to a Salesforce project. And this isn't something that, yes, you want somebody having oversight of change management and owning a strategy. But as a Salesforce consultant, we have to embed change management principles in everything we do throughout the project. For example, the first pillar that I look at in change management is rationale and readiness. The rationale is the business case. It's understanding why are they doing this? Is it the right time for them to do it? We're doing the risk mitigation process. And again, I've got a risk mitigation framework, which has 20 risks that need appraising as part of a project. So you're going through the rationale. The readiness is the risk mitigation, the readiness also looks at, are they ready as an organization? Have they got other stuff going on right now that could be a distraction for Salesforce? Because we all know that we can go forward with Salesforce, but they're very busy and distracted maybe on other projects and other things. There might be other cultural dependencies there. So as Salesforce consultant, we need to be aware of these change management principles. So that's the first stage of it. The second is then having a team and understanding who's part of that team. And again, as Salesforce consultants, you need to have a team of stakeholders who are involved in this. And the executive sponsor needs to know their roles and responsibilities and what's expected of them to get everybody on board. I teach those aspects of it. I teach, as a Salesforce consultant, how do we upward manage the executive sponsor and inform them about their roles and responsibilities and what they should be saying? And how do we set up a centre of excellence and a governance structure that's going to be on board with change? And we've got departmental managers who understand their roles and responsibilities and what they're going to communicate and to get them on board. And then we've got, how do we map stakeholders? So we've got a stakeholder analysis piece. And when we look at stakeholders, they typically sit within 4 boxes. And to give a crude reflection of that, you're going to get people that are really excited. And we love those people, right? In an ideal world, we'd have everybody that's really excited about Salesforce. The other reality is we're going to get people who are angry. We're going to get people who are sad. We're going to get people who are ignoring the whole thing. Yes. And so there's 4 different camps. And so with my change management course and principles, I talk about motivational strategies. How do we get those people all on board and over engaged to get them to the point where they're excited? And there's 4 different motivational techniques that you can take. There's also the understanding the learning styles, because there's 4 different learning styles: audio, digital, kinesthetic, visual learners. So the way that we engage with these stakeholders throughout the business analysis process, throughout the quality testing, throughout the training, we have to install those motivational strategies, those doing the demo, engaging the audience in those ways that's going to amend to those different learning styles, and be bringing everybody on this journey with us. So change management isn't just something that somebody does over in the corner here by themselves. It's the way that we interact with all these stakeholders on this journey to get them engaged and enthused about Salesforce in the way that we communicate, the language we use, the methods and the motivational strategies that we use throughout the business analysis process, throughout the quality testing, and throughout the training. And my change management course makes you think about all those areas, and it layers in on top of everything that we're doing. Where you might have a change management representative come in, which say there is value, is that they are almost holding the communication strategy. And the communication strategy is one piece of the puzzle, where communication is going out to your stakeholders in 3 different ways, in 3 different times. We used to say people need to hear and see things 3 times for it to sink in. Now people say it's 9 times because of our concentration span. In terms of having a really great communication strategy, which is typically where a change management practitioner might be, you want to make sure that you are communicating the why. Why are we doing this? What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? And you are doing that in a way that is going to engage those 4 different stakeholder types with the right approach to the culture of the organization, because again, a different culture organization will adopt a different approach. Yes. To bring everybody on this journey, but everybody's being informed about what's happening. People need to be informed about we've got this business analysis session coming up. This is why it's important to get ready for it. This is what you need to do to prepare for it. This is what our expectation is. And that communication is delivered in a suitable way that's going to get everybody on board with the business analysis. And then you've got the quality testing, and then you've got the training, comms. A comms strategy needs to be spot on, planned, coordinated to support your role as a Salesforce consultant. Because what happens if that bit isn't done is a Salesforce consultant will rock up to a business analysis workshop. Nobody's engaged, nobody's prepared.
Yes.
Everybody's busy with their day job, and they really struggle to get what they need. And then you get a rubbish design.
Yes.
Then nobody's really engaged in the training. And then that's what you get, a digital belly flop, as I call it.
Yeah.
And it all goes downhill. Communication piece is so paramount to the success of it. And yes, as a Salesforce professional, we can embed positive communication, positive language, but there is a bigger strategy, communication strategy, that needs to engage the executive sponsor, the management team, and everybody else in it to make sure that the message is loud and clear.
Spot on. And look, I love the saying. I can't remember who it was. I think it was the cyclist, but like the race is won in the training, not on the day. And I think, that's so important. I spent 18 years within corporate, and, corporate, I wanted the decision before the meeting, not in the meeting. Sure that, I managed all the stakeholders beforehand so that it was basically nearly a tick the box exercise. Now, I know some of the specifics around the build and the process, yes, but that official, what's officially been said and what's unofficial, you want to make sure that you're in the unofficial part of it before you enter the room, not afterwards, or not during, I should say. So I think, that's so critical. And I think, often you as a tech consultant, whether Salesforce we're talking today, but it doesn't matter what the platform, often you get so caught up in the technical side of it that you miss the nuance of, well, what's actually happening from a political and a cultural perspective within the company.
Exactly.
And, I think that's what, like you said, it's the people, not the tool, that is the variable here. The tool is, is fairly easy to configure, and also the workflow and the process. And just on that, Heather, the cultural piece, how do you, in your training, factor in, different cultural differences from a country perspective down to an individual company perspective?
Interesting. I haven't looked at it from a country perspective, but absolutely that is, something to be accommodated for, particularly when you're dealing with global companies with offices in different places. So it's a really nice add-on, actually. There's 4 cultural metaphors that are used, which I got taught on my change management course. Anything from like the political organization, where there's key influencers in the organization that kind of have been there a long time, that tend to be the instrumental people that will encourage and get people on board. And then there's machine-led organizations where it's very top down, and that's very typical of like compliance type organizations where they have to be that way because there's certain compliance requirements that they need to deliver on within what they do, and everything is recorded. Everything has to be recorded, from phone calls to emails to everything else. Those different approaches, you will need to think differently. Now, there's pros and cons of delivering in those different environments. So in a machine-led environment, you're engaging with the senior stakeholders and what they want and what they need. The downside of that is sometimes at the end, the frontline workers can feel that they haven't been included in conversations. But the reality is, if they're used to being in that type of environment, then you are rolling out almost like a machine-led training environment as well, where you kind of creating a brilliant training resource and modules, and you'll need to get certifications probably ticked off and quizzes that they've completed all the training, particularly if it's compliance orientated, but they'll be moved to a way of working. But that might feel slightly uncomfortable with somebody. It's like, well, we want to get everybody on board and everything like this. But if it's that kind of environment, you just have to go with their methodology, but also introduce certain motivational strategies that will feel comfortable, and you can think about how you best deliver it with them. But then you can work in another organization. I've worked in every type of culture, I think, where it's more the flux and transformation, where it's almost the frontline workers are leading the change.
Yes.
And then no senior management are on board. And then you've got a whole problem of the senior management don't value the system, they're not investing in the system, they're not logging in and using the system, so then nobody trusts the system, and it doesn't have any governance. And so you've then got this other problem, which can go the other way round. You've got to be very aware of the situation you're walking into and the culture of the organization you're walking into, and to really get the temperature and to deploy whatever skills you can to make it successful in the environment you're in. And if you're going into flux and transformation, getting the senior management board on board might be what you have to do. So that red account that I talked about earlier, where they'd invested a lot of money, what had happened is the senior management team had all changed. None of them had ever got training in Salesforce. None of them used it, but the employees were still using it from legacy. So they weren't bought into it at all. Whereas actually what needed to happen in that situation is they just needed to be brought back on board with training, with engagement. And Salesforce very much advocate now, an organization should be all onboarded from C-suite down on trailhead, and they should be given trails to do and everything else. So it's seen as best practice to do that. That's part of this methodology. And I think it's going back to, I spent £11,000 on all of my training around business analysis, agile project management and change management. And I've come away with a whole suite of skills and tools that I feel confident to walk in to a project in, and, to sort of take what I need and plug and play. And that's where you want to be as a consultant. You want to feel fully equipped. There's obviously this training out there. We have training that's much cheaper than that now, but covers all the essentials. I've also got Udemy courses as well that cover, various of those segments. I think the main thing is you want to be skilled up and feel competent to walk into a project and to know how to navigate these situations rather than not have a strategy. Because that's what will lead to success.
Yeah. And the other thing, which, just reminder, we're talking to Heather Black, episode 540, and Heather Black's from supermums.org, is that if you're sitting here and thinking this is so much work, like I've got team members and I've got to learn it myself, and then I've got to go and teach them. So, there is the ability also for people that have been promoted out of the Supermums program and the courses, that you can go and bring them into your organization as well. So, there is you and your team getting trained, but there's also an opportunity to take people that have already been trained in the methodology, and that can then help internally bring up the standard of your consultancy practice. And just on the course, Heather, how long does it normally take someone to go through it?
So with our consultancy skills course, that is our live instructor one, is 12 weeks, 3 months. We also have now segments of that content on Udemy that people can just download and watch in their own time, so it's more accessible and timely. Having grown my SI and grown it to 20 staff, I've interviewed a lot of candidates, and candidates that have been through the mill a few years and wanted great, big salaries, but they hadn't done any professional training. They had no methods, no methodology to the way that it worked, no examples of documentation they'd ever produced. And for me, I just think, wow, okay, well, how have you done this job without any sort of formula to the way that you work? And the trainees that have come out of our program that are incredibly mature talent, like they've worked in other businesses and industries and even consultancy backgrounds. When I hired talent from my own Supermums program into my SI, they were the best consultants. They were getting 5-star reviews on the App Exchange. They were leading projects from start to finish because they'd invested the time and the money in learning how to do it properly. And they're incredible. And, you really feel really proud about where they are in the ecosystem today. So we do have SIs putting their employees on our program because they don't have time to train them themselves. Content is all available. So you're much better investing in training programs to get them up and ready. It's not on you, but that they've got a formula and a process to adopt on projects.
Yeah, brilliant. We could talk forever on this topic, and we might have to get you back as a guest to talk, about AI, because that's a whole nother beast is what's happening with AI. And I'm sure you're integrating that into your program. But what we're going to do is just pause for a moment to thank our sponsors, and then we'll come back on the rapid fire questions.
Running a tech consulting business can feel like a solo journey, but what if you didn't have to navigate it alone? Introducing the Tech Collective, your go-to resource for tackling those burning questions and unlocking your potential. Join a dynamic collective of experienced tech consultants ready to share insights, strategies, and support to help you today. Grappling with sales, client, or team challenges, the Tech Collective has your back. Join us today at paulhigginsmentoring.com/TC. It will help you work smarter, not harder to achieve your business goals. Just visit paulhigginsmentoring.com/TC. So, Heather, you ready for the rapid fire questions?
Go for it.
All right, fantastic. So the first one is, what are the daily habits you do to help grow Supermums?
Daily habits to grow Supermums is exercise, re-energize myself. I plug myself into the energy socket every day. That could be a dance around the kitchen to Peloton to swimming.
Fantastic. So, you've shown today how learned you are, but where do you go to learn more about growing Supermums?
So I invest in mentoring and training myself. I'm a big classroom learner. So I like going out. There's a group of us that meet and we get training from experts in the industry. And I could just come away so energized from those sessions.
Fantastic. What's one wish we could grant Supermums?
Just keep telling people and spread the word about Supermums. 60% of our trainees come through word of mouth and recommendations. So thank you if you have spread the word about Supermums already, but please keep it whispering away.
Fantastic. And what do you know now that you wish you had known at the start of starting Supermums?
That it would help so many people change their life for the better. I think, it's really made a massive shift in people's lives, and the feedback we get is incredible. And I wish that I'd gone through a period where we'd invested in it earlier to grow it quicker, but due to circumstances for me personally and everything else, it wasn't the right time. So I think we've got a lot of potential to grow and develop. And we're very pleased with what we've achieved so far.
Fantastic. Well, if you're looking to either upskill yourself or your team, or go and hire someone that's had all of the benefits of Heather's training, please go to supermums.org and also check out the book, which is Become a Super Salesforce Consultant. It's available on Amazon. And obviously, there'll be links on Heather's website as well. But Heather, brilliant to meet you today, and thanks for sharing your wisdom and passion around being a better Salesforce consultant.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me, Paul.
What a great interview with Heather. And I think if you're even a non-Salesforce partner, you can definitely benefit from this, because Heather's methodology is very thorough, as you heard in the interview. But reach out to Heather on LinkedIn and support the Supermums organization. It is a fantastic organization. And also share it with other people within your industry, your peers, etc., because they can either benefit from the courses individually, or, like I said, it's a great pool for getting new talent. Also, check out Heather and I on the YouTube. So just go to Paul Higgins Mentoring. That's our YouTube channel. And I'll see you next time on the Paul Higgins Show.
Time for action. Let me know what you implemented from the show. I promise to respond. Plus, get the Tech Consultants Roadmap at paulhigginsmentoring.com/roadmap.